Good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine McGarry, and I'm the Mayor of the City of Cambridge and Chair of tonight's Special Council meeting. We're now in the dog days of summer. That means lots of fun, but it also means an increase right now of people accessing our local hospital. Patients in the emergency departments of local hospitals are waiting hours for a bed and face long waits to see a doctor because of a significant staff shortage. Staff shortages have had a ripple effect, not only on wait times and patient volumes, but it's also contributed to a backlog of surgeries. Our hospitals are overwhelmed again. Our frontline workers are exhausted, and we should do all we can as a community to ease the burden on the entire system. So the message is, unless you're faced with an emergency, please continue to see your primary healthcare physician or primary healthcare provider, an after-hours clinic, instead of visiting our local emergency rooms. On the great news front, last week, more funding was announced to build more affordable and supportive housing units in Cambridge. The project at the old Satellite Hotel lot on Hespeler Road will provide more than a roof over someone's head. It'll be a place to learn, grow, and heal for so many. Out of 55 units, 20 will be supported, and the federal government did announce the funding of $15 million, and certainly all four levels of government have stepped up to help support the project at 195 Hespeler Road. So we're very grateful for that. It is an excellent example of an incredible partnership with a common goal, again, to offer support to those in our community who need it most. So let's get on to our agenda for this evening. I'm going to ask our clerk to complete a roll call of council so that we can confirm everyone's attendance today as we are coming to you electronically today. Madam Clerk.
Councillor Adshade.
Present.
Councillor Devine.
Aye.
Councillor Ermeda.
Present.
Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Hamilton.
Try again.
I think we can see you, so we'll count that as you're here. Councillor Liggett will join us shortly. Councillor Mann.
Present.
Councillor Reid.
Present.
Councillor Wolf.
Present.
Mayor McGarry.
Present. So in addition, we're going to take a moment to welcome the staff that we have joining us today. And joining us electronically, we have our city manager, David Calder, our deputy city managers, Dave Bush, Cheryl Zonleiter, Hardy Bromberg, and Yogesh Shah. Our chief financial officer, Cheryl Ayers, our city solicitor, Lisa Shields, our chief planner, Lisa Prime, our director of engineering, Kevin DeLebeck, and we also have staff from other divisions that may be joining us this evening, and they'll join the meeting when their item is up for discussion. The clerk for this evening's meeting is Jennifer Shaw, Deputy City Clerk. And also joining us this evening is Michael Oliveri, Council Committee Services Coordinator, and Rachel Latour, Clerk's Administrative Assistants. Thanks again today to our Technology Services staff, Ayash De Silva, who's assisting with logistics for today's meeting. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather today is the land traditionally used by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We also acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. We celebrate their achievements and their contributions to our community. And I'd like to take just a moment now and pause and reflect on our land acknowledgement. Thank you. So now a reminder to members of council that the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act requires members of council to declare any direct or indirect interest, pecuniary interest in relation to a matter under consideration. So members of council, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we're going to move forward with our agenda for today. Our first item for consideration this evening is the consent agenda. Please note that if a member of council wishes to comment on any of the consent items, please let us know by raising your raise hand feature. But in the interest of time, we will look to vote on the consent procedure in a block. But if you wish to comment, you are welcome to do so. Councillor Mann, I believe you have the motion. Will you please read it?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Reid that all items listed under the heading of consent agenda for August 9th, 2022 council agenda be adopted as recommended. Item 6.1, special council minutes, July 19th, 2022. Item 6.2, council information package, July 29th, 2022. Item 6.3, 22-087-CD, credit for service arrangements, updates, and request for approval. Item 6.4, 22-102-CD, request for a credit for service agreement, LVH Moffat Creek. Item 6.5, 22-049-CRS, project request for asset retirement obligation, financial reporting requirements. Item 6.6, 22-090-CD, request to alter a Part 5 designated property, a Part 4 designated property, 223 King Street East. Item 6.7, 22-045-CRS Good Roads and Services Award under delegated authority in accordance with purchasing bylaw 19-187. Item 6.8, 22-051-CRS roll-off plow trucks. Item 6.9, 22-046-CRS agreement between the city and the KW Urban Native Wigwam project.
Thank you very much. Does any member of council wish to pull any items from the consent agenda? Are there any questions for staff? Or does council have any comments? I wanted to just make one, and that was item 6.9, the agreement between the city and the KW Urban Native Wigwam project. That allows this project to get going. This is the one that's being built with 30 units on Cambridge Street, and looking to see those units built as quickly as possible. So this is great. That's this next step in the process so that we can have all those individuals housed in our community. So I'm now going to ask the clerk to call for the vote. Madam Clerk?
Councillor Adshade.
In favor.
Councillor Devine.
Aye.
Councillor Urmeta.
In favor.
Councillor Hamilton.
In favor.
Councillor Leggett.
In favor.
Councillor Mann.
In favor.
Councillor Reid.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf.
In favor.
Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
And that carries.
Thank you. And just before I move along here, Councillor Leggett, do you have any items of direct or indirect pecuniary interest to declare for anything on the agenda for this evening?
No, I don't.
Thank you. And I'm just going to stop for a second and see if Councillor Hamilton's sound is now working. Councillor Hamilton, will you just give us a hello?
I think it should be working now. Thanks to Aish. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That last minute scramble. Thank you very much. So our first agenda item this evening is number 7.1.1, Report 22-027 OCM Recreation Complex Land Disposition. So I'd like to welcome Paul Kahn, our Manager of Realty Services, who will provide us with some opening remarks. And I'm just going to make sure that Paul is in the meeting. There he is, loaded up. Welcome, Paul. Please begin.
Thank you, Mayor McGarry, and good evening, members of council. As outlined in Report 2227 OCM, city staff are seeking council authorization to complete the sale of city land to the Waterloo Region District School Board and the Waterloo Catholic School Board The land is located in Southeast Gulf, just east of Dundas Street South in Brashton Road. It's approximately 12.8 acres, and it's part of a larger property that the city acquired with a vision of a joint development with the boards for a joint use campus that will include an elementary school facility and a community recreational facility and a public library. The key business terms of the agreement of purchase and sale between the city and the boards are that the parties pay their proportionate shares of the cost of land acquisition, development study costs, site servicing costs, as well as interest costs to the city. And also that the parties commit to completing a joint use agreement, a multi-use trail, and a pedestrian connection between the school and the recreational facility. As at the end of May 2022, the board's share of costs is approximately $5.2 million plus taxes, and this will be adjusted at closing, which is expected to be or targeted to be November 15th, 2022, in order to keep to the board's project timelines. Also, the boards will continue to pay their proportionate share of additional future site servicing costs post-closing. And thank you, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Paul. I think we're probably just going to go to the motion now, and then if you'll stay on, we'll see if there's any questions. Councillor Reid, would that be acceptable? I saw that you just put your hand up. Yes? Okay. I think we'll put the motion on the floor first. Councillor Hamilton, you have this motion, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. That's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Wolf. Recommendation that report 22-027-OCM Recreation Complex Land Disposition be received, and that council declare that the city-owned lands described as parts 2 and 5, being part of lot 3, concession 10, Cambridge, herein referred to as the parcel, as land surplus to the city needs, and that council authorize the sale of the parcel to the Waterloo Region District School Board and the Waterloo Catholic District School Board, collectively and jointly herein referred to as the boards, in accordance with the key business terms as outlined in this report, and that the proceeds in the amount of $5,204,800,000 from the boards be allocated as identified in the financial impact section of report 22-027-OCM, subject to adjustments at the closing date. And further, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute all documentation required to implement and give effect to the adopted recommendations as set out in this report, and in a form subject to the satisfaction of the city solicitor.
Thank you. So we'll now move to questions for staff. Councillor Reid, please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I'm really pleased to see this motion here and that we're moving forward with this complex. I'm also really pleased to see that we have a partnership agreement in works here. The only issue that I could see might be tricky is the trail, and it said it was to be negotiated to remain in the hands of the city. And I'm just wondering if that's not successful with the multi-use trail to remain in the hands of the city, do we have an alternative plan?
I see you've unmuted Mr. Khan. Go ahead.
Oops. Oh, sorry. I was going to defer that to Shane. He probably could provide a better explanation.
Okay, we
to
have
next
Shane
steps.
Taylor with us. Please go ahead, Shane.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. We have been in discussions with the boards quite extensively about the multi-use trail. They equally to the just as much as the city are interested in having this trail. They believe that it really supports active transportation. It supports being able to keep cars off the streets, all of those fantastic things. And so we've put some mechanisms in place, including provision of a future easement for the trail so that the city can operate it, maintain it to appropriate standards. All the partners feel that that's the most appropriate way forward with the trail. And so we all feel confident that we will be able to get this trail and the easement sorted out as a part of this agreement of purchase and sale.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, we can move to comments. Does anybody have any comments? Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I just want to say I'm very excited to see this project moving forward. I know there's a tremendous amount of growth and development in this area. There are a lot of families, there are a lot of kids in the area that are anxiously waiting for new libraries, new pools, and the community itself will benefit from the new educational spaces, recreational places, cultural spaces that will open as well. So my thanks to staff who put a tremendous amount of work into this. And I think myself and the community are very excited to see it move forward.
Thank you. Councillor Wolf, go ahead, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I too am very excited about this project, and I'm glad to see the two school boards working together. It's a good use of resources that they're sharing, many of them, and we know that the ID exchange is also going to be on, in this area, as well as the recreation center. So it's going to be definitely a fantastic community hub, and it's good to see everything moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just add my final comment. I also am very glad to see this moving forward. It takes a tremendous amount of negotiation and work behind the scenes in order to have so many community partners at the table in order to affect such a great project in the future. So thank you very much. Seeing no other screens, I think that we're ready to call for the vote. Madam Clerk.
Councillor Adshade.
In favor.
Councillor Devine.
Aye.
Councillor Urmeta.
In favor.
Councillor Hamilton.
In favor.
Councillor Liggett.
In favor.
Councillor Mann.
In favor.
Councillor Reid.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf.
In favor.
Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
And that carries.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is number 7.2.2, Report 22-048, CRS City Hall Extension of Service Cambridge Counter for Enhanced Customer Service. So I'd like to welcome our Chief Financial Officer, Cheryl Ayers, who's going to provide us with a brief presentation this evening. So welcome, Cheryl. We'll just pull up your presentation here. There it is. We'll just get it set up and you may begin when you're ready. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and to you and members of council, thank you for the opportunity for me to give you a brief overview of the proposed changes to the layout of the first floor of City Hall that will provide enhanced security and customer service. In my presentation, I'll also be advising you of a change to the recommendation in the report for the amount of budget that's required. Next slide, please. So in response to the public health guidelines throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, the city transitioned its model for customer service delivery at City Hall by closing service counters throughout the building and transitioning all customer service activities to the main floor. And further details on that can be found in the report before you this evening. This approach worked well to contain the spread of the virus and also resulted in efficiencies to how service is provided. The proposed modifications to the main floor of City Hall serve two purposes. One is for the ongoing protection and safety of the public and staff, and two is to provide more efficient service to customers as staff are able to direct them to the appropriate counter on the main floor rather than sending them to other areas within City Hall. This afternoon, I've received a couple questions about this project and if it's been approved by the Accessibility Advisory Committee. And I can confirm that the proposed changes are scheduled to be reviewed by the Accessibility Capital Project team on September 1st before any work on this project proceeds. And as with all construction projects completed by the city, we're required to meet AODA requirements, and this project will meet all requirements. In preparation for this project, staff worked with a design consultant to prepare drawings and a cost estimate for the proposed work. At the time of preparing the report that's before you this evening, the estimate was $100,000. And since that time, staff have continued to work to modify the concept, and a most recent cost estimate was received late last week in the amount of $125,000. As we're seeing in many of our capital projects, price escalations are impacting budgets, and the increase we are seeing in this project is due to the extensive mill work that is required on the counters. Therefore, if council approves this project, the staff recommendation needs to be updated to a budget request of $125,000. Next slide, please. In addition to the efficiencies in customer service and addressing health and safety, the proposed plan also addresses feedback received from Waterloo Regional Police through an audit that was completed to understand security issues at City Hall. A number of recommendations were made through the audit, such as repositioning the security desk towards the exit door to have a clear view of the public entering and exiting the building, redesigning the access to the stairwell to the second floor and installing a controlled access, and committing to permanent kiosks in the lobby area where security will have a clear view of
Point of privilege.
Yes, Councillor Reid.
Yes, I'm finding it very difficult to hear. Cheryl's just going in and out. I'm not sure what's happening.
Okay,
with the sound.
and I did note that you weren't on mute. I'm wondering if that's part of the problem. You are now. Cheryl, could you just sit closer a bit, I guess, to the computer and see if that sorts it out? Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize, Councillor Reid. I will speak louder. The recommendations from the security audit have all been incorporated into the proposed modifications to the main floor in City Hall. The pictures on this slide show some of these concerns, and I'll explain each of them in a little more detail in the next few slides. So if you go to the next slide, please. So this picture shows when you're coming in the front doors of City Hall by the Service Cambridge counter. And as you can see from this image, you cannot see the security desk. So that means that security can also not see patrons and customers that are coming in that doorway and using the facilities at the Service Cambridge counter. So that is one security concern that we're hoping to amend by moving the security desk closer to the Service Cambridge counter. Next slide, please. This image is from the current security desk in City Hall, showing that when you look towards the existing Service Cambridge counter, you can only see a portion of the counter. So again, similar to that last picture, we can't see the entrance doors and the front part of the counter that customers may be at. So it poses a risk to staff and the public that security can't see the full counter. Next slide, please. This image shows the temporary kiosks that have been set up in the Bowman room on the main floor at City Hall. So the modifications proposed in this report will eliminate these temporary kiosks and install permanent kiosks for the staff to work at and free up this space so that it can again be utilized for events and special occasions in this area of the lobby. Next slide, please. And finally, this image shows the stairway to the second floor of City Hall, where we are trying to control access to staff only. And as you can see, it's a bit of there's a barrier that's there, but it doesn't prevent the public from going up the stairs. And we have seen examples where the public has gone past the barriers and the signage and gone up to other floors within City Hall. So this project proposes installing a barrier that would be controlled through swipe cards in order to access the stairway. Next slide, please. And finally, this slide shows an image of the proposed changes to the main floor of City Hall. So if we start at the left-hand side of the slide, towards the bottom corner, you can't see it in the image, but that's where the existing Service Cambridge desk would be. So the new counter area that is at the left-hand side would be built in front of the stairway to the human resources area currently, and under the stairway to the second floor. So there will be 3 workstations built within that service desk that will be built, and that will give the security staff a better view to the main doors for staff coming in. They'll have good views of the Service Cambridge counter and all the activities within the first floor. Towards the middle of the diagram is showing the turnstile feature that will be built up to the second story at City Hall. And over to the right of the diagram shows the existing security desk that will be repurposed for staff that are in the temporary kiosk locations in the Bowman Room. They will sit at that desk there to repurpose that space. We're continuing to work through revisions, so we're expecting this will be what the floor plan will look like, but we're continuing to work out the final details. The report before you this evening for approval requested a budget of $100,000, as I mentioned, and as staff continue to work through this with the designer and the accessibility team, there may be refinements to the plan. Therefore, staff are requesting a revision to the recommendation in the report for a total budget of $125,000. The next slide, please. And if there's any contact or any questions, please feel free to contact me. My information on this slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. And I think it's interesting for the community to recognize that the Bowman Room has been the site of a lot of our public services over the last 2.5 years of the pandemic. All right, we'll go to questions first. Councillor Liggett, please go ahead. We can hear you better off mute, just saying.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Cheryl, what I'm not seeing on the report, and I had to step away for 1 second, so maybe you did address it. I don't see a waiting area, a reception area for seating. So for people who are having trouble with standing, or people with children, where I know like in front of the clerk's department, currently there's some chairs that are there. So where do we think we're going to be putting these? And also, is there going to be a take a number system?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for those questions. There are 2 areas that are proposed for seating, both on each end of the main floor. The main one will be beside the current Service Cambridge desk and the security. So that corner where there's a bit of a display case currently just outside of the human resources area will be set up as like a cooling and warming center, as well as seating provided in that area if people need to have a seat. We have not talked about taking a number system, but that's something I can make a note of and consider in the project as we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'll go next to Councillor Devine. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you through the chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I had some discussions today with some staff, and we've come a long way here. I'm very, very glad to see that the meeting is being set up September 1st to go through any AODA issues, excuse me. And I think that we're heading down the right direction here and the right path for our community. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Reid, you're next. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, my question, and it may have been in your presentation, but I'm wondering about the Bowman Room. When you said those kiosks are going to be rebuilt, I didn't really understand where they were going to be rebuilt, and I didn't understand whether or not the Bowman Room would return to a room which could be used for community events.
Thank you, Councillor Reid, and through you, Madam Mayor. You are correct, Councillor Reid. The intention is for the Bowman Room to be used for events like it has been used in the past. So that when the temporary kiosks are removed, those staff will be moved to the existing security desk, and that will be repurposed as those more of a permanent workstation for those staff that are currently working in the Bowman Room.
Thank you.
Councillor Wolf, you're next. I'm just going to remind members of council, if you've spoken, please remove your hand. Go ahead, Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Cheryl, I'm just trying to clarify in my mind what's happening. So the security desk right now will move to more so they can see the front entrance where the people are coming in now. And the service desk, does it stay at the same place or it moves?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Service Cambridge counter will stay as it is. A new security desk will be built that is more central to the lobby so that there's better sight lines to the existing Service Cambridge desk and that front entrance of City Hall. The existing security desk will be repurposed for workstations for the staff that are currently in the Bowman Room to be working at the existing security desk as a secondary service counter for customers.
So at this point, basically the only new area that we're doing is creating a new security desk.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is correct. The new security desk will be built. Yes.
Okay. And to me, if that's all it's
Councillor Wolf, you've frozen there. Can you turn off your camera and try again? Just going to see if it unfreezes. Councillor Wolf, if you can hear me, can you turn off your camera and try again? Maybe she'll come back in, but I do have a question myself, and we'll see if we can reconnect with Councillor Wolf. But maybe not a question, but just a point of clarification again, if you can, Ms. Ayres, just that we've been operating all our city services on the main floor in the Bowman Room, which is why it hasn't been available for any other community space or events. And so what we're proposing is the fact that, and this is just really a point of clarification, that we're going to centralize the security desk so they can see all of the main floor. And we'll ensure that the temporary kiosks that have been operating temporarily for 2.5 years will now go to permanent structures just on the edges of the first floor, so that we can still utilize the space in the Bowman Room once the construction is completed. Is that correct?
Yes, that your assumptions are correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just going to see if we have Councillor Wolf back in the meeting. Just one moment. We don't see her in the waiting room yet, and it looks like she's dropped off the call. So while she's trying to reconnect, I'll go back to Councillor Liggett. Please go ahead.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Cheryl, are we going to be closing off the door that's over by the Durward Center? Because that would be, if we don't, that would be not available to security in their sightline, right? Or how are we going to handle that?
Through you, Mayor McGarry, my understanding is that door is used for staff currently. It can be used as an exit, so staff, anybody can get out that doorway, but right now it's only used for staff to enter through, not the public. There have been discussions about possibly changing that in the future, but I'm not sure that we've landed on an exact decision on that.
So, sorry, follow up, please, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
So are we going to have made that decision by the time we start the construction of all of this? It just seems to me to be something that's really important to not consider it at this point in time, or before we start construction at least.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we will have further discussions on it. I think the intention is that we want to concentrate all public accesses through the one end of City Hall, and then just use that other end primarily for staff. But as I say, anybody can get out, so it's not a security or any type of risk that way for people to get out of the building. We're just trying to control access of staff only coming in on the one side and trying to focus the public using the other side of the main floor and for entering and exiting the building.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl.
Councillor Devine, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you to the chair. Now, after this conversation, it's my understanding that the Bowman Room would go back to the way it was pre-COVID. Is that a fair statement?
Through you, Mayor McGarry, yes, that is correct, Councillor Devine.
Thank you. And that the Service Cambridge desk where it had been previously, that's where that's going back to. Is that correct?
Again, through you, Mayor McGarry, the Service Cambridge counter is staying as it currently is. There are no changes proposed in this project for the Service Cambridge counter.
Okay. And the security desk is being relocated to where?
The security, sorry, through you, Mayor McGarry, the security desk will be moved so that it is closer to the existing Service Cambridge counter. It will be located just outside of the Human Resources Department, below the stairs that go to the second floor, as a new counter built in that area. So they will have a line of sight to everywhere in the main floor.
Okay, so that's the westerly door into the city of Cambridge. Is that correct by the market?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, that's where it's going?
Sorry, through you, Mayor McGarry, I'm not sure about the west or east, but it is just outside of the Human Resources area, closer to the Service Cambridge counter.
Can somebody confirm if that's the westerly door, please?
That is, and Mr. Bush has a thumbs up.
Thank you. Thank you for the information.
Okay, Councillor Wolf, we see you back. Do you want to try again?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I will. Will the atrium be impacted? Because we also use the atrium for events.
Through you, Mayor McGarry, one of the comments through the security audit that was done through the Waterloo Regional Police was to be mindful of sight lines when there are events set up in that atrium space, as well as when we set up the Christmas tree and that type of thing. So I believe we will still hold events in the future, but we need to be aware of the sight lines of the security staff and make sure that they can still see appropriately throughout the main floor and being able to monitor the public as they're coming and going in that space.
Okay, and a follow-up, would a cheaper option just be not using the front door? Since the security, where the security is right now, they can see the west and the east. And actually most of the public used to want to come in from the market door. I just seen like $125,000 for one new desk area. Seems a lot, that's all. I just wondering if we could solve the problem by, or part of the problem anyway, by just allowing people to come in through the market door instead of the front door.
Thank you. And again, through you, Mayor McGarry, one of the objectives we were also trying to achieve through this project is considering the public health guidelines that were in place through COVID-19. And if there's any future pandemics or similar public health guidelines, we want to make sure that the infrastructure is set up in a way that we can continue to meet any guidelines. So having one door available for entering, which was the front door, was helpful to control distancing, social distancing. So people were coming in the front door and exiting through that side door by the market area. So that's why we were trying to utilize those two doorways, one as an entrance and one as an exit, as to help meet public health guidelines.
If I may just weigh in there too, Ms. Ayers, part of the security audit that was done was that the security cannot lose sight of the public at the service desk. So Service Cambridge desk will continue to remain in place where it is, and where the public is coming in and out, security can see most of that from their current desk, but they can't see people in the public at the Service Cambridge desk as it exists. That's why it's going to be moving. And as it's contained in the report, there will be another desk built there, and there's also going to be a gated door at the foot of the stairs. So it's not just one security desk that's being done. And this is to comply not just with public safety, but staff safety and the security audit that's been done on the precinct. And with that, Councillor Leggett, do you have another question? Because I was going to move to comments. Sorry, you've muted.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. Cheryl, I'm sure that there's a lot of little details that aren't done yet here. So I just want to throw this out there. A while ago, we had a discussion last term about doing some sort of a kiosk in the lobby area, similar to what they have in the Guelph City Hall when you first come in that building, or what they have at the chamber, excuse me, so that people can pull visitors to the community, or even taxpayers coming in who have family coming from out of town, can pull flyers out of tourist attractions or restaurants, different things like that. Just an information kiosk. Is that going to be in the plans, or is that something that you still have to work out the details of?
For you, Mayor McGarry, that isn't something we had considered, but I'll make a note of it as well, and we can talk about it as we refine the plans.
Yeah, just a standalone one. I'm not talking about a kiosk that's operated by people. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, are there any comments? Seeing none, we're going to move to the motion that's going to be revised. Oh, Councillor Mann, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the work that's gone into this, because when I look at where the security desk was originally located, it did hinder the sight lines for security staff to see who's coming and going from the building. And when we talk about safety and security, we're talking about staff, we're talking about the public, and we're talking about anybody else who might be in the building. And to move the security desk so that there is the best possible chance of having sight lines or viewing of all three doors within City Hall entrance, I think is a great idea. And having the crime prevention through environmental design survey done by the police enhances that and really solidifies the need to make the changes that are being recommended here this evening. So I'm all in favor of the motion that's come forward, because when we talk about people, we want to make sure that we keep people safe and secure whenever they're in our buildings. And thank you to staff for the work that's gone into this.
Thank you very much, and I concur. There's been a lot of work to date, and collaboration of a number of different departments along with our police service. So thank you. So as I said, we're going to put the motion on the floor, and Councillor Adshade, you have the motion, but as Cheryl noted in her presentation, staff have proposed a change to the report recommendation. So I'm going to ask our clerk to put the revised wording on the screen for council and read it out for us. Madam Clerk?
So moved by Councillor Adshade, seconded by Councillor Wolf, that report 22-048 CRS City Hall extension of service Cambridge counter for enhanced customer service be received, and that a capital project in the amount of $125,000 be approved for the City Hall service Cambridge and security counters, and further that the capital project be funded from the rate stabilization reserve safe restart agreement funding.
Thank you. All right, Councillor Adshade, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. I just wanted to say I'm in favor. I'm in support of this motion. I think it's going to be good for the public and also good for staff at City Hall. So I'm in favor of it. I just wanted to, I know Cheryl addressed this in her presentation, but I know Councillor Dumont and I were a bit concerned about it not going to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, but it's not the final draft. And Cheryl has mentioned that it will be going there and they're going to meet all accessibility requirements. So I'm quite happy about that.
Thank you. And I know the date had been booked, so that was good. Seeing no further questions or comments, I'm going to call for the vote. Madam Clerk?
Councillor Adshade. Councillor Adshade.
In favor? Yeah.
Councillor Devine.
Aye.
Councillor Mehta.
In favor?
Councillor Hamilton.
In favor.
Councillor Leggett.
In favor.
Councillor Mann.
In favor?
Councillor Reid.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf.
In favor?
And Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
And that carries.
Okay, thank you. Just to go back to something that I missed, nobody else found except the clerk, but we missed our agenda item number 7.2.1, report 22-050 CRS, architectural and engineering services, Cambridge Recreation Complex and Library. So I apologize for that. I lost it in my notes. Councillor Hamilton, I believe you have this motion. Will you please read it in its entirety?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ermetta. Recommendation that report 22-050 CRS Architectural and Engineering Services, Cambridge Recreation Complex and Library be received. And the council endorse and direct staff to award request for quotations for architectural and engineering services for the Cambridge Recreation Complex and Library to McLennan Johncombs Miller Architects Limited of Toronto, Ontario, being the top-ranked respondent of the aforementioned solicitation process for an upset limit of $460,000 plus HST to complete concept design. And that project A/00463-30 Recreation Complex design be increased by an amount of $799,380 for a total revised budget of $6,384,380 for increased design costs associated with the modified build option. And further, that it is recommended to draw $63,383 from the Capital Works Reserve Fund, $297,534 from the Development Charges Parks and Recreation, and $438,463 from the Development Charges Library, as outlined in the Financial Impact section of Report 22-050 CRS.
Thank you. So we'll move now to see if there's any questions of staff on this report. Seeing none, do council members have any comments? And seeing none, I will just mention that I'm really pleased to see how much work is being done on this project, and it's a next step along the way. And I think we're all pretty excited to see this come to fruition. And now I'm ready to call for the vote. Madam Clerk?
Councillor Adshade.
In favor?
Councillor Devine.
Aye.
Councillor Ermetta.
In favor?
Councillor Hamilton.
In favor.
Councillor Leggett.
In favor.
Councillor Mann.
In favor?
Councillor Reid.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf.
In favor?
Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
And that carries.
Thank you. So moving right along, and I wasn't quite in order, but the next item is number 7.3.1, report 22-023 CRE Newland Pool Capital Project. And I think we'll just go to straight to put the on the floor as a motion. And Councillor Mann, I believe you have this motion. Will you please read it?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Hamilton. And the recommendation is that report 22-023-CRE Newland Pool Capital Project be received, and that council endorse the updated design to convert the existing 2-tank design of the pool to a single tank with a graduated entry. Option 3 is outlined in this report. And further, that the capital project budget A/00521-40 Newland Pool repairs be increased by $757,741 to be funded from the Facility Maintenance Reserve, $376,400 successful grant funding, and the Capital Works Reserve Fund, $381,341.
Thank you. So I'll now move to any questions for staff. And seeing none, are there comments that members of council would like to make? Go ahead, Councillor Mann.
Yes, well, thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, certainly I'm very supportive of this motion. I think with the removal of the dive tank, it becomes more accessible and more inclusive of our community, and it becomes a far greater drawing place or place-making facility. And I think when you have a beach entrance or a graduated entrance, it allows everybody to be involved. And with the size of this pool, we'll still have diving capacity and diving capability. So I think everybody should be happy with what's being proposed tonight, because it does include all members of our community. And I think from a financial perspective and from an operating perspective, it's very feasible and practical to do it this way, because what we are doing is, instead of having duplicate services in various parts of the pool, we have one pool that provides all the services. So we have less filters or less operating devices, and it becomes more practical as far as the maintenance and operation of the facility is concerned. So again, thanks to staff for working through this and coming up with this proposal. And I really am in support of what's been suggested tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Liggett, please go ahead.
There, had trouble there. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very happy with the motion, and as Councillor Mann had said, I'm thankful also that the staff were able to come up with something that worked out so well here. I would be remiss though in saying that I'm saddened by the fact that this is now going to be our only outdoor pool in the city. You know, that in the past we made decisions to close 2 of the other pools. I don't regret this pool, the work that's going to be done on it to retain it for future. I just wish that we had not made the decisions to close the other 2 at the cost of those living nearby who cannot afford to have a pool of their own, and will not, maybe because they're too young or whatever, will not be able to attend the one in Preston. So they will not have that joy of having the experience of an outdoor pool. So I just want to say that that saddens me that we are, you know, not having kids utilizing a recreational facility that they used to have in their own neighborhoods. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Adjade, you're next. Please go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Your Worship. I'm in support of this motion. It's a good time. They need to be new construction done on the pool anyway, so this is really good timing. And it's going to be, what I really like about it, it's going to be fully accessible. And we're looking at making destination points. I think this would be a real destination point of placemaking. And also too, with the new design, there's going to be cost savings in the future with using less water and so on. So I'm in full support of this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Reid, you're next. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I first had a question around the diving, and I wasn't sure if diving was still going to be continued with the pool.
I think I saw Rachel or, oh, Cheryl's on either. There you go. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Council. While the diving tank itself would be integrated into the footprint of the larger pool, and the depth will be slightly increased, we are looking to maintain a diving board there so that recreational diving can continue.
Okay, will this be a tall diving board or a short one, or both?
I think that is to be determined, and also we will take a look at the existing diving board and its condition as well. So that will be established in collaboration with our recreation division.
Okay, thank you, because I think it's important to continue, having diving there as well. Just as comments, I want to say I'm just absolutely delighted that this is happening. I think that the beach entry is really a great way to have this pool so that it's available to everybody, no matter what their ability level. And it's so much easier for people to go in gradually, like as I say at a beach, than it is to use ladders, which people slip from and causes accidents here and there. So I'm just delighted that it'll be a bigger pool, that it will be available in Preston to everybody in Cambridge. It is a pretty central place for all of Cambridge, so I'm sure that people from all areas of Cambridge who want to experience an outdoor pool will come there and use it. I can see that it certainly has been well used in the past, and I'm sure it will continue to be well used. So I'm very much in support of this, and I think it's a great plan, and let's just move forward as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go next to Councillor Hamilton. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I think this is a really exciting addition and change for the city. I think what sets this pool apart for me is that it's the pool where attendance was going up, and there's a substantial demand for its services. So it makes sense to make this investment because of the growth in that area and the clear demand that we're seeing for the pool. Speaking as a parent of two very young children, the graduated beach function is absolutely amazing because I have a toddler who's terrified of jumping into the water at the Dolson pool, which is also a great pool. But just seeing the ability to walk into the water and to engage in activity, regardless of your age or your comfort in the water or your physical ability, it's going to be a tremendous asset for everyone in the city. I do want to stress to the public, because I did have a couple of questions about this today, like, gee, this seems a lot more than the original. It's like, it is true, but as the report goes into, a lot of that has to do with the pressures that have been put on supply chains and the rise of goods generally. So on page 99, to point out that the original estimate of 462,600, that would rise up to basically 1.1 million. So that's really only a tiny bit less than what this proposal offers. Financially, when substantively, culturally, recreationally, this revised proposal offers so much more, not just for Preston, but for the entire city. So I'm in full support of it. I think this is a great example of going back, changing based on difficult circumstances and making changes that are positive for the city and for everyone as a whole. So it's a fabulous change, and I think it's a great example of how we can turn a difficult situation into a long-term positive benefit for the city going forward. It's a great investment.
Thank you. And I'm also in full support of this motion. I think, certainly I had children before and after the beach entrance was made at Hancock Pool. So I could see the difference from my young toddler, my last one, being able to slide into the water. But I think we have made decisions as a council for the last while in order to ensure that we have more inclusive play areas. And that was evidence in the discussion around the Jumpstart play area that we're now going about planning, so that we've got accessible, inclusive areas for all of our community to benefit from. This will certainly be part of that. And it's really part of our overall plan to economically try and revamp our city facilities, our sports facilities, in the most economically viable way. I know that we've had report after report out of our 3 outdoor pools. Eddie Newland's pool was the newest and the most reasonable to upgrade, whereas the others had really gotten to the end of their life. And we'll have Hancock open for a few more years as we're redoing the Cambridge Recreation Complex. So I think overall, this will be a good move for the city as we're building the other aquatic center, and we'll have Hancock open, assuming that it continues to function well, at least for the next couple of years till everything is completed. And in saying all that, we're ready for the vote. Madam Clerk?
Councillor Adshade,
In favor.
Councillor Devine,
Aye.
Councillor Urmeta,
In favor.
Councillor Hamilton,
In favor.
Councillor Liggett,
In favor.
Councillor Mann,
In favor.
Councillor Reid,
In favor.
Councillor Wolf,
In favor.
Mayor McGarry,
In favor.
and that carries.
Thank you. Just making sure I'm getting to the right next one. 7.3.2. Yeah. All right. I am correct this time. So our next item on the agenda is item 7.3.2, report 22-024 CRE, update to the Cambridge RTO4 Grand River Access Point Project capital budget. And Councillor Liggett, you have the motion. Will you read it? And then we'll put it on the floor to discuss. Please go ahead.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Mann, that report 22-024-CRE update to the Cambridge RT04 Grand River Access Point Project capital budget be received, and further that the capital budget of Project A /011025-40 be increased to $378,244 from $150,000 to reflect the additional grant funding received.
Thank you. So I'll turn now to members of council to see if there are questions of staff. And seeing none, does anybody have comments they'd like to make on this item? And I think I'd just like to add that I'm really delighted to see this particular project moving ahead. And again, another river access that's been long desired by our community is taking the next step forward. So delighted to see this. And in saying that, I'm going to call for the vote. Madam Clerk?
Councillor Adshade,
In favor.
Councillor Devine,
Aye.
Councillor Urmeta,
In favor.
Councillor Hamilton,
In favor.
Councillor Liggett,
In favor.
Councillor Mann,
Favor.
Councillor Reid,
In favor.
Councillor Wolf,
In favor.
Mayor McGarry,
In favor.
and that carries.
Thank you. Our next item is number 7.4.1, report 22-078, CD recommendation report, zoning bylaw amendment 442 and 448 River Road and part of Laneway 211, Kia Group Limited Partnership. So we have with us this evening Rachel Green, our senior planner, who will be providing us with a presentation this evening. I see she's all set. She has unmuted, and we're going to pull up her slides. And they're coming up there. Welcome, Rachel. Please begin.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, and members of the public joining us this evening. My name is Rachel Green. I'm a senior planner here at the city, and I will provide an overview of the proposed development at 442 and 448 River Road and part of laneway 211, file RO419. Next slide, please. This slide provides a timeline of the planning process and where we're at to date. A public meeting was held on December 10th, 2019, and staff and agencies have continued to review the application since then and are at a point to make a recommendation to council for a decision this evening. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located at the western end of Olivewood Way and also have frontage on laneway 211 off of River Road. The property has been redesignated from low medium residential density to neighborhood residential in the official plan through the River Road secondary plan process. The site was also rezoned to R5 residential with site-specific provisions to implement the policies of the River Road secondary plan area. The property previously had a single detached home, which was demolished in 2019 as a result of a fire. The house was identified as a heritage property of interest and received permission for the demolition through the Municipal Heritage Advisory Committee. So now the house is no longer located on the property. The northern portion of the property contains part of a wetland, and portions of the property are considered to be part of a locally significant natural area. The surrounding lands are generally comprised of larger lot single detached dwellings fronting on River Road, as well as an existing subdivision which is located to the east. Next slide, please. As some background, I'm going to give a little bit of a timeline. In June 2019, Council enacted an interim control bylaw to study the River Road area, which was extended until September 2021. In December 2019, the public meeting for the subject application was held, and staff continued to review this application while also undertaking the secondary plan process. In July 2021, Council recommended approval of the River Road secondary plan to the region, and the region finally approved the plan in June of this year. And so throughout all that review, the development was taken into consideration throughout that process and was redesignated and rezoned to generally accommodate the proposal tonight. Next slide, please. So the applicant is proposing to develop the subject lands with 18 single detached dwellings to be created through a vacant land condominium application, which the region is the approval authority for. The development includes the construction of a municipal cul-de-sac from Olivewood Way and a private condominium road, and the services will be extended from Olivewood Way. No vehicular access is proposed through the site to laneway 211 down to River Road. This is in accordance with the findings of the secondary plan, but a pedestrian connection to the laneway is proposed so that there is future access to that multi-use path that is proposed as part of the secondary plan. Should the application be approved, a separate report would come to council for realty services regarding the sale of a portion of the laneway, which you can see on the western portion, kind of running through Unit 8 and the turnaround area on this map. And lastly, the existing wetland proposed on the northern portion of the site is proposed to be retained and enhanced. And the swim pond is also located in that area. Next slide, please. So while the zoning through the secondary plan process did permit the development, was incorporated as part of that amendment, a mapping error was occurred during that process. So you can see in that blue triangle, the lot lines were not correct on the original mapping, and it was rezoned RM4, which is the same as the adjacent property, which permits multiple residential. And so the area in the blue triangle should be rezoned to R5 to be consistent with the rest of the parcel for singles. Next slide, please. The second part of this application is to rezone the northern portion of the site shown in green here to open space. And this area includes the stormwater management pond, as well as the wetland and associated buffer. The butternut trees located on the site are located within the OS1 area, and which is considered to be outside of the development area. The proposed zoning reflects the natural heritage overlay policies in the secondary plan, which required additional environmental studies to be done to determine the exact boundaries of the buffer in order to protect the feature. The environmental impact study submitted has been reviewed by city, regional, and GRCA staff who have no objection to the rezoning to the open space designation. And the recommendations in the EIS will be implemented through the conditions of the condominium. Next slide, please. So considerations for this application included, but are not limited to, consistency and conformity to applicable provincial, regional, and local policy, conformity to the policies introduced by the River Road Neighborhood Secondary Plan, compatibility within the existing neighborhood, environmental impact study recommendations, servicing and stormwater management, site connectivity, public submissions by staff, agency, and the public. Many of the comments received pertain to ensuring the development was not approved until the secondary plan and associated studies had been completed, which has now been done and have contemplated the proposed development within those regulations. Other comments related to the protection of natural features on the site, including the wetland and trees, which will be located within the OS1 zone. A buffer has been proposed and enhancement measures will be included as conditions of approval through the condominium application. And a permit from the GRCA will be required to carry out any work within the regulated lands. Tree management plans will be further reviewed through the condominium process, and new developments are required to provide street trees as well as compensation plantings for removals. And as previously indicated, the butternut trees on the property are not located with the development area and will be zoned OS1 to ensure their preservation. Next slide, please. After review of applicable planning policy and comments received, staff provide the following recommendations: that the recommendation report be received, that a subsequent public meeting in accordance with the Planning Act is not required, that council approve the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to amend the site from RM4 to R5 residential and OS1, and further that the bylaw included as an appendix to the report be passed. Next slide, please. Members of the public can contact me if they wish to receive notification of the decision on this application at the contact information listed on this slide. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Rachel. So I think we are going to just hold off questions right now because we do have one pre-registered delegation for this item. So we'll hear all the delegations and then put the motion on the floor before we ask the question. So I'm going to ask staff to bring in, oh, there he is. Our delegation this evening is Tom Horsley. Tom, it's Mayor McGarry. Can you hear me? Tom, it's Mayor McGarry. Are you able to unmute and can you hear me? Tom, it's Mayor McGarry. Can you hear me now and can you unmute?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Do you have the YouTube on in the background?
Yes.
Yeah, there's about a 25 to 30-second delay. So if you would turn that off, that would be helpful.
Okay, it's turned off.
Great, thank you. It's not real time from here to the YouTube channel, so it can be very confusing for you as it's, things are behind when you're listening to them. So welcome. Thanks for joining us today to delegate. So a reminder, Tom, that you'll have 5 minutes to address council. Please ensure that your remarks relate directly to the agenda item you're speaking to, that your remarks remain respectful, and that you refrain from asking questions of council. I'll let you know when your 5 minutes are up if you speak that long, and you will hear a bell at the 1 minute mark or the 4 minute mark. So you'll have 1 minute to wrap up. And if you wouldn't mind staying on the line, please, because members of council may have questions for you. So I'll guide you through that. So welcome, Tom, and you have 5 minutes to speak to this item. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to speak probably more the process of this development than anything. The development is being fed out of Olivewood Way. We'd like to kind of ensure as a neighborhood that the construction isn't done and fed off of River Road. River Road is a very busy walking trail, bike trail, very well used by the community and stuff. We had a kind of bad experience with the townhouse development down at the end of the road when that was going in. It was, to say the least, it was very disrespectful to the whole community, the whole area. We reached out as a neighborhood. Many people reached out to City Hall. A lot of it fell on deaf ears with no response, anything else. Mike Devine actually came out, and he a few times spoke about them using the road with no flagmen, not cleaning the roads up at night. It was kind of sad because, like I said, I think sometimes it's underestimated by council just how busy it is out here. We've lived out here for a few years now, and it astonishes me every weekend. Not exaggerating, hundreds of people using the river, which entails going downtown and buying ice creams and going to Four Fathers and having lunch. The people walking and biking on the area here. The reason I guess we really want to see this, that's assured that Olivewood Way would be the feed to construction, is there's sidewalks, boulevards to keep pedestrians safe and things. On River Road, we don't have any sidewalks. We don't have things. At the townhouse complex, actually, when they're building it, the fence is on the side of the road. You couldn't even get off the road, and the other side of the road is a guardrail, basically retaining a cliff. So people were quite often coming up that hill. It's a blind bend, and it was a bad scenario. And like I said, I'd like to thank Mr. Devine for kind of getting involved with that, because he did satisfy a situation there that could have been very ugly. So I guess that's it. I'd like a couple questions would be just to confirm that the development going in is not going to have individual sewage pumps in every house. I hope that someday we'll probably have services on River Road, and I would imagine it would be hooked into that, and it'd be a shame if they all had individual sewage pumps, because it would just be a huge expense to everybody to hook in, whereas if it was fed to one central area, at least if the services ever came out here, it would save a big expenditure for people living in our community and living in that development. So that's about it, I guess. I'd like your consideration to make sure that this project doesn't get out of control like the other one. I think Councillor Devine could speak to kind of how the other one did get out of control at times. And like I said, please don't underestimate the community usage of the area out here. And it's such a unique area. That's why you've got the community has been so involved with the redevelopment out here, is because we don't want to see it change. We don't want to, excuse me, but kind of become the city. We're all kind of on the edge of town in the country here, and we'd like to maintain it that way. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate speaking. I hope you consider what I've had to say.
Thank you very much, Tom. And that's why we were able to listen to delegations. Lots of good ideas and suggestions and concerns and issues come forward. So thank you for taking the time. I'm just turning now to members of council to see if there's any questions of clarification for you. And seeing none, thank you again for dropping in and presenting to us this evening. And you can continue now to watch the rest of the item if you so wish on the City of Cambridge YouTube channel. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
So I think we're going to place a motion on the floor and then we'll ask any questions. Councillor Devine, you have the motion. Will you please read it?
I'd be more than happy to read it, except I don't have it with me at this point in time. If I could have someone read it for me, please, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, I'll have Madam Clerk read it, please.
And I'd like to speak first on it as well.
Yep. Madam Clerk.
Moved by Councillor Devine, seconded by Councillor Leggett, that report 22-078 CD recommendation report zoning bylaw amendment 442-448 River Road and part of laneway 211 be received, and that Cambridge Council is satisfied that a subsequent public meeting in accordance with subsection 3417 of the Planning Act is not required, and that Cambridge Council approved the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to amend the zoning of the site from residential R5 S.4.1.415 to open space OS1 and multiple residential RM4 S.4.1.415 to residential R5 S.4.1.415. And further, that the draft bylaw attached included as Appendix H to report 22-078 CD be passed.
Thank you very much. Councillor Devine, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you to the chair. I have absolutely no problem with the motion. All it does is clean up a problem that I'm glad it was noticed, by the way, or it could have been a bigger problem. Thanks, Rachel. But I'd like to make just a couple comments on what Mr. Horsley had to say. Mr. Horsley lives on River Road, and the people on River Road are very concerned, and they're also very safety conscious, it was really nice to see in today's society. But when the townhouse development was getting built, there was a lack of flag men, there was a lack of control, and I got hardly involved in it, and it got cleaned up. It got cleaned up relatively quickly. Okay, but there was initially is like nobody cared. So I would think, and we'll listen to what Mr. Horsley has to say. I don't think we need to be feeding things off of River Road into that subdivision, because, and the good thing about these are that I can be all built at once, not like the condos that were built. So that's a bonus. And the other thing is, Mr. Horsley mentioned it. I believe, and this is a question to staff, are there trash pumps going into those units? Because we had this discussion some time ago, and I just don't want to think that we've got some foggy memories going on here. I would like an answer on that, please.
Thank you. I'll just turn to members of staff. Rachel, are you ready to address that? I'm just looking around on my screen here. Oh, there you are. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. Individual grinder pumps for each dwelling are not proposed, and there is an expectation in the condition that we're proposing to the region for the condo that they will be hooking up to River Road when the services are installed.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you for having a very good memory. Thank you. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'll now turn to members of council to see if there are further questions of staff. Seeing none, do members of council have any further comments? And seeing none, we're ready to call for the vote. Madam Clerk.
Councillor Adshade.
In favor.
Councillor Devine.
Aye.
Councillor Ermeda.
In favor.
Councillor Hamilton.
In favor.
Councillor Leggett.
In favor.
Councillor Mann. in
favor.
Councillor Reed.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf. Councillor Wolf.
Favor.
I heard an in favor.
In favor.
Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
And
Yes,
that
it was unclear, but I heard that too. Thank you. I can tell you that we're all looking forward to getting back into the chamber. I guess it's in the term of the next council. By the time we have everything done, nobody can be happier than I am. I have 8 documents around me, and we won't be as subject, hopefully, to internet. Anyway, our next item is just around the corner there at 7.4.2, Report 22-084 CD, Blackbridge Road and Town Line Road Project Update. So, Councillor Devine, you have the motion. You declined last time, so shall I have the clerk read it on your behalf?
Please do, Member McGarry.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk.
Moved by Councillor Devine, seconded by Councillor Mann, that report 22-084 CD Blackbridge Road and Town Line Road project update be received, and that council directs staff to issue a public notice of the city's intention to pass a resolution to stop train whistling on the CN rail line at grade crossing with Blackbridge Road, and that funding in the amount of $90,000 be added to existing design project A/00091-30, $60,000 for the additional design task not included in the original scope of work, and $30,000 to pursue the design of at-grade crossing improvements for whistle cessation, and that funding be provided from the Capital Works Reserve Fund in the amount of $30,000 and from the development charges from development charges of $60,000, and further that the additional construction cost of $570,000 to implement whistle cessation at the CN rail line at grade crossing with Blackbridge Road be incorporated into the Blackbridge Road and Bridge Construction Project A/00492-40 as part of the 2023 to 2032 capital budget forecast.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Devine, since it was your motion, I'll turn to you to see if you wanted to speak to this.
No, the only comment I'll make, Member Gary, is it's long overdue. The staff has worked very, very, very hard to try and get all the pieces put together, and it's been a challenge. Ask Paul Kahn, but I support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I'll turn to members of council to see if there's any questions. And seeing none, does anybody have any comments they wish to make? Councillor Mann, please go ahead.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, I certainly support the motion, and I think it's great that we can have a whistle cessation motion come forward for this particular part of town or the community. And I hate to suggest this, but I know that there are other crossings in town that we need to take a look at for whistleblowing cessation. And I hope that as we go forward, we'll be able to do that. There are a number of them in town that have been identified, and this is one that's being addressed, and I hope we can, through time and over time, we can address some of those others that are still outstanding. And again, thanks to staff for the work done on this, because I know it's not easy, and a lot of work has gone into this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'll go next to Councillor Reid. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't get my hand up quickly enough for questions, and I did have one question around, is there any responsibility that the railway has in order to help fund this so that we can have cessation of whistle stop?
Thank you, and I'll certainly accept questions. So I'll turn to members of staff, and that's Kevin DeLibet. He's waved first. Please go ahead.
Through the mayor to Councillor Reid, there are grant funding applications that we can submit for these. Our track record so far hasn't been that great in terms of receiving funding from Transport Canada for these types of improvements. But the rail companies themselves do not have any direct involvement to any improvements at the request of the municipality. So it's up to us to find, leverage any of the grant funding that might be available, or to find the funding from other means.
Oh, thank you very much. It just seemed to me that the railway should have some responsibility, but I gather that is not so. So if I may continue with comments, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I am very pleased to see this motion come forward. I know that along with Councillor Devine, I have received a number of comments from our public about these whistles, and particularly the ones that are early in the morning and disturbing people. And so this comes as very happily to me and to, I'm sure, the number of residents in which are near where the whistle is blowing. So I also concur with Councillor Mann, and that's not the only ones in which I have received comments from the public on hopefully their concerns about whistles. Particularly the ones that I received are ones that are early in the morning. So if we can continue to look at some of these in the future, it would be very helpful. But this one I totally support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton, please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I think I'm going to echo a lot of the comments of my colleagues, but this is something we've all heard a lot about from residents, and justifiably so. No one likes getting woken up by a train whistle or having their kids woken up by train whistles as well. It does show to residents that there are quite a lot of variables in play to stop a train whistle. The common issue is, why don't you just tell them to stop? And we wish it was that easy. But echoing Councillor Mann, I think this could act as a fantastic template going forward for the city and for CN to be able to stop these whistles at other locations in the future. And just as a quick aside, the timing was perfect, where as soon as this motion was put on the floor, there's actually a train whistle going by, which I've never had happen before at City Council. I've never had that. So if there's a positive sign, I'll take that. So thanks.
Thanks. Councillor Liggett, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm assuming that this came through complaints from the public. Are we actually using this as a precursor to moving forward with all of the other locations in town to follow rapidly, or are we going to wait for complaints for the next one? Because I can see an influx of complaints and requests coming forward.
Well, I think I'll turn to Mr. Daliba. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Through the mayor to Councillor Liggett, we've actually commissioned a study to start to do preliminary assessments on all of our rail crossings right now to figure out what it would take to actually implement a whistle cessation. So that work is ongoing right now in a proactive manner, because I also thought it was a good idea to try to start moving forward with what would it take in other locations of the city, because we do hear this complaint quite often. So we're just starting to do some of the groundwork based on the other assessments that we had to do with Transport Canada legislation that came in not too long ago.
Follow up, please.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Kevin. Yes, I've received through my terms on council, I've received complaints from people as well, and was able to get some things changed. But do you just offhand know, not holding you to any of this, do we have any idea of how many other locations we have in the community, or if we can do just a carte blanche thing with the rail lines to just stop overall? Because if we had to do this at every single stop, other than the physical changes that may have to happen, is that an astronomical cost that would have to be done over, let's say, 10, 20 years? You may not be able to answer that, just wondering.
Through the mayor to Councillor Liggett, there are approximately 15 locations in the city that do not have whistle cessation. Some of those we are pursuing with the rail company because they don't actively use the line to decommission those. So we wouldn't need to pursue that whistle cessation order for those ones. But the other ones are the ones that we're reviewing right now. So about 10 or 12 of them. Typically, most of them require active warning systems. So those are all quite expensive to install and could be coordinated with any road reconstruction that might be happening in that area. So it really comes down to trying to plan that a little bit more than just one-offs, but there might be appetite to do the one-offs if need be as well.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. And I think my question, just as a follow-up there, would be that there's more than one rail line through these crossings through the city, correct? CNCP. Yes, I see you nodding.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. See no hands up for questions. Are there any further comments? Seeing none, we're ready to call for the motion. Madam Clerk.
Councillor Adshade,
In favor.
Councillor Devine,
Aye.
Councillor Urmeta,
In favor.
Councillor Hamilton,
In favor.
Councillor Liggett,
In favor.
Councillor Mann,
In favor.
Councillor Reid,
In favor.
Councillor Wolf,
In favor?
Mayor McGarry,
In favor.
and that carries.
Thank you. So please note that agenda item number 7.4.3, report 22-1220 CD Joint Brownfield Tax Increment Grant Program, revised agreement for 130 Water Street North has been pulled from the agenda for this evening and will come to council for a future date. That does conclude our regular agenda for this evening. So before we moved into close, I'm just wondering if any member of council has any other business for discussion. Seeing none, we're going to move forward and we are going to move into closed session. Councillor Reid, you have the motion. Would you like the clerk to read it?
Yes, please.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Moved by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, that in accordance with Section 239 C, E, and F of the Municipal Act 2001, Council convene in closed session at 6:35 p.m. to consider the following subject matter: C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, lease of Park Hill Road parking lot. E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, verbal update on a litigation matter and litigation update. And F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, verbal update on a litigation matter and litigation update.
Thank you. Does council have any comments? Seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote. Madam Clerk.
Councillor Adshade,
In favor.
Councillor Devine,
Aye.
Councillor Urmeta,
In favor.
Councillor Hamilton,
In favor.
Councillor Liggett,
In favor.
Councillor Mann,
In favor.
Councillor Reid,
In favor.
Councillor Wolf,
In favor?
Mayor McGarry,
In favor.
and that carries.
Thank you. So we are going to wait while we prepare to go into close. So we're going to take a 5-minute to allow the clerks to stop the feed and get us into close. So I'll see you back here in 5 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. We're now going to rise from closed session. I'm going to ask Councillor Adshade for the motion and have somebody second it.
Okay, it's moved by myself and seconded by,
Councillor Mann.
okay. That council rise from closed session and reconvene in open session at 8:09 p.m.
Thank you. I'm going to call for the vote. Madam Clerk.
Councillor Adshade,
In favor.
Councillor Devine,
Aye.
Councillor Urmeta,
In favor.
Councillor Hamilton,
In favor.
Councillor Liggett,
In favor.
Councillor Mann,
In favor.
Councillor Reid,
In favor.
Mayor McGarry,
In favor.
and that carries.
Thank you. And while enclosed, discussions occurred between council and staff, and that staff were provided direction on a litigation matter and property acquisition. So the following motion is going to be related to items of correspondence and presentations at council. And Councillor Mehta, you have the motion. Will you please read it?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I do. This motion is moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Leggett, that all presentations and correspondence from the August 9th, 2022 special council meeting be received.
Thank you. Does council have any comments? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Madam Clerk?
Councillor Adshade,
In favor.
Councillor Devine,
Aye.
Councillor Urmeta,
In favor.
Councillor Hamilton,
In favor.
Councillor Leggett,
In favor.
Councillor Mann,
In favor?
Councillor Reed,
In favor.
Mayor McGarry,
In favor.
and that carries.
Next up on our agenda is consideration of bylaws. Councillor Reed, would you move that? And could the clerk read it for you?
Please.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Moved by Councillor Reed, seconded by Councillor Mann, that the following bylaws listed under the heading of introduction and consideration of bylaws be enacted and passed. Bylaw 22-052 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 150-85 as amended with respect to land municipally known as 442-448 River Road and part of laneway 211.
Thank you. And we're ready for the vote. Madam Clerk?
Councillor Adshade,
In favor.
Councillor Devine,
Aye.
Councillor Urmeta,
In favor.
Councillor Hamilton,
In favor.
Councillor Leggett,
In favor.
Councillor Mann,
In favor?
Councillor Reed,
In favor.
Mayor McGarry,
In favor.
and that carries.
Thank you. Next is the confirmatory bylaw, and Councillor Mann, you have the motion. Will you please read it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Liggett. And the recommendation is that bylaw 22-053 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Cambridge be passed.
Thank you. So I will call for the vote. Madam Clerk?
Councillor Adshade,
In favor.
Councillor Devine,
Aye.
Councillor Urmeta,
In favor.
Councillor Hamilton,
In favor.
Councillor Liggett,
In favor.
Councillor Mann,
In favor?
Councillor Reed,
In favor.
Mayor McGarry,
In favor.
and that carries.
Thank you. Well, we really now have reached the end of our agenda for today. So Councillor Adshade, you have the motion for our close of meeting. Will you please read it?
Your Worship, I do, Your Worship. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Mehta that the council meeting does now adjourn at 8:13 p.m.
Thank you. I'm now going to call for the vote. Madam Clerk?
Councillor Adshade,
In favor.
Councillor Devine,
Aye.
Councillor Urmeta,
In favor.
Councillor Hamilton,
In favor.
Councillor Liggett,
In favor.
Councillor Mann,
In favor?
Councillor Reed,
In favor.
Mayor McGarry,
In favor.
and that carries.
Thank you. That concludes our meeting for tonight. So thanks for being with us tonight, Cambridge. Please stay safe and be kind to each other. Good night.